I worked for American Supplier Company, and Institute. And Larry Sullivan would travel to Japan to do these case studies, missions, to get information from what the Japanese, because the Japanese were really having a big impact, becoming more competitive. And Larry would come back, he had a small walk-in closet, and he would stash away all this good stuff. Well, I always wanted to snoop. And so I became a good friend with his secretary, and when he was out of town one time, I was able to get into his little office, his closet, and I came across a binder on the Kobe shipyards. And I was going through page after page, even though I couldn't read Japanese, there was one thing consistent. They had mapped out all their processes. I saw the flow charts. And I remember I'm by myself, there's a little light hanging out with no shade, and I said to myself out loud, so that's how the Japanese do it. It was 2 weeks later that we got a call from Ford Motor Company, and they said we need to have 2 people trained in our new process improvement curriculum. And I was very fortunate that they selected, I was one of the 2. And I went through this training, and one thing I found out, because we were working with a lot of suppliers, that most businesses couldn't afford to let their people go for 4 days for training. And number 2, they couldn't afford the $950. And so what I did, I put together a 27-page handout, and I ended up working with the American Sunroof Company, Heinz Prechter. That was his business years ago. And we saved like $250,000. And then I ended up going up to Onan, up in Minneapolis. They do the generator for recreation vehicles. And we reduced their product development time from 4 years to 2 years. Just by getting people together, sharing information, letting them be part of shared decision making, and making the process visible. Shortly after that, I got a phone call from Whirlpool in Benton Harbor. It was a Friday afternoon. Almost everyone in the office had left. I answered the phone, which I normally never did, and they were saying, do you have a course on process improvement? We've been benchmarking. And I said, yes, we do. I had my little handout, right? And they ended up selecting that handout, and I worked with Whirlpool, and we created their worldwide process improvement curriculum. What have these experiences taught me? Make your processes visible. It helps create a shared understanding on how your business operates. It helps to identify these key interfaces, which I call control points. It focuses on the customer, internal customer-supplier relationships, lays the foundation to make sure you get on-time, complete, and accurate delivery of service. And really, number one, it creates the foundation for continuous improvement. The book that Ford Motor Company used, or the consultant, was Jerry Rumbler. If you could read one book on process improvement, there's the book. But I love this quote: an organization is only as effective as its processes. And also on whole systems thinking, put a good performer in a bad system, and the system wins every time. 6 weeks ago, I got a phone call on a Tuesday. It was a gentleman by the name of Ulf Cleaver. He had just been hired by Miele USA, a $400 million company in Princeton, New Jersey, and they needed to map out a new process. And I had worked with his wife in Dale Carnegie in Long Island, and she recommended that he would call me. And we had the contract signed on a Friday. We created the agenda on a Monday, and I met him at the airport on a Wednesday. And this is what we did. in 14 hours, a day and a half. We created their reverse logistics. Does anyone know what Miele does? They do high-end appliances like refrigerators and stoves. They're considered the top, a top brand. But they break, they need to be replaced, and to get that moved back to the company and all that, they were having a lot of problems, and they wanted to farm it out, but they needed to ensure that they mapped out the process so they could give it to the person that was going to do the quote for the RFQ. And here's some people sharing information, shared decision making, and a key thing is reaching consensus on how it should be. And again, this was the afternoon of the first day, and this was our final product. What I liked about this, as we were going through this, they were discovering pain points or their challenges, so we would put them on a pink and place them where we thought they were happening in the system, and then others that dealt with maybe policies and things like that we put at the top. And we put together an action plan, a 2-week action plan, because I had to get it done. We did a quick, identified what had to happen and put it on a timeline. And we did this in about 14 hours. So a lot of this you can do if you get some people together, you can do a lot in 2 or 3 hours. So if I walked through your shop or your business today, would I see evidence that you've done process mapping? Do I see evidence that you understand where your critical control points are? If you haven't done that, you have a little work to do. That would be my recommendation if you want to make money and generate cash.